Welcome to another Keelhauled podcast. I'm your host, CaptainLogun, and we got a lot of Sea of Thieves news to cover today, so tie yourselves to the mast and hold fast. Ahoy there, pirates. I hope you had yourselves a good week and a good weekend. I know I did. This week we have our first new update of the new year, and we are going out searching for legends. And with me today, I actually have a legend. So joining me today, I have Chocolate Moo Juice. Moojoo, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing good. We were dealing with some technical issues, so it feels like a second run, and it just wasn't as awesome as the first run goes. But that's okay. That's how podcasting works sometimes. But yeah, I wanted to bring you on because of all the different legends and stuff that I think I know out in the Sea of Thieves. You're one of the ones that I really love to see what you do, because you actually are in the game, but you're in a game in the sense that you actually made a ship to commemorate the first anniversary of Rare and Sea of Thieves, and with help from the community, managed to get this full ship. Like, how big is this ship? How big is it normally?
The ship is pretty big. So you're looking at about, the box that it went in was a 2-foot by 2-foot box. So it's a little under 2 feet in length and height, but not by a whole lot. So it's a pretty big model kit. It's the biggest model kit that I've currently worked with, is that particular body style.
Okay. And how soon did you have to get it to Rare when you had finished making it?
It had 2 weeks. So basically, by the time I started, I had a month. So I had 2 weeks to build a ship that would normally take me 5 to 6 weeks. And then I knew I had to have it done at least 2 weeks in advance for it to get there. And as it stood, it arrived, I believe, on the actual anniversary day. So it just eked in there in time. It was tight. It was really tight.
And that took quite a bit of effort and community support to actually get the shipping from like California all the way over to Twycross in the UK. So
yeah.
How much was the shipping for that?
It was $800. So I knew it was going to be pricey because I knew the box was going to be big. But I thought, like, I could pack it. There'll be a way. And when I went down that morning to actually send it and the book of sentiments that kind of went along with it, they basically just hit me with, no, you can't pack it. We have to pack it. We have to do all this. It's got to be insured up the wazoo, and it's going to run you $800. And so I kind of walked away with the ship and sat in my car, and I called every other company in the area to see if, like, what everybody else's rates were. I'm like, okay, at this point I knew the size of the box, I knew the weight of the ship, and I knew where it was going. So I'm like, okay, this is what I've got. How much is it going to cost? And everyone came back with, anywhere from between $800 to like $1,500. And I'm like, I can't do that. At that point, I hadn't been teaching for a little while, so it was like I didn't really have, just shy of $1,000. So yeah, I came home and immediately just kind of went to, the community and Twitter, and I think it took 20 minutes. Within 20 minutes, the entirety of what was needed to send it got sent through to my PayPal, and I was able to turn around and go right back in and have it shipped. So it was pretty amazing. Yeah, there's no way it would have actually made it to Rare headquarters without the participation of a lot of people. So not only was it like 50 some odd people that participated in, filling out the sentiments and thoughts in the book that went along with the ship, but on top of that, there was a large community input to just get her there. So it really was, a project that wouldn't have been able to happen without so many other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And that ship is now at the actual, or out of sea post out in the Ancient Isles. The finest sea post? I think it's the finest one. Yeah. I'm trying to remember. It's the one where the girl always gets sick and tells you not to rock around. So yeah, there's a little model version of the Allegiant on the back shelf of that sea post. So the reason why I wanted to bring you on was because I wanted to talk about the legends of the seas. But first, you are a teacher. You do teach on a regular basis. What kind of? Because I know Captain J from the Crow's Nest. He's a teacher. I know Jeff Perez, Pegleg Perez is a teacher as well. I know a lot of history teachers that play Sea of Thieves. And coincidentally enough, all seem to really love pirates in history. So you're in the same boat. Not to use a pun too much, but you teach the same thing, right?
Yeah, I do. Well, so for the longest time, I taught a self-contained sixth, seventh, and eighth grade class. So I taught primarily. I was the history and science instructor, as well as like PE and health. And such. So yeah, history is definitely like my two big passions are going to be history and science. So yeah, and literature.
And
I love books.
yeah, you actually have a Discord with an actual book of the week or book kind of
Book of the
thing
month
as
club.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're in the process of selecting our next read. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think for Sea of Thieves, there's a lot to the game that appeals, especially if you like history, because it's not a direct representation of piracy, or the ships aren't directly reflective of what they're actually were like, but there's enough of it that you get the feel. And I remember when my son and I played the game from day one. He's got the day one eye patch. We shared an account for a while. And I remember in the very infancy of the game, sitting back at my desk while he was on our account playing with his friends. And, it's kids, and they're sitting there having conversations with each other about how to use the map, and they're using nautical terminology, and they're talking about tacking. And I've taught units on the Age of Sail. And so for me, it was a moment to kind of geek out on the fact that, like, I have to jump through hoops to make all this stuff interesting and really immersive. And then this video game comes out, and it was a great tool for them to get firsthand experience in a lot of the stuff that I would have then, had have gone into a class and talked about. But they were, teaching each other this stuff through the gameplay. So, I think video games for teachers that do play, there's a lot of games that pull you in like that. And you look at a subject that you know very well because you teach it, and you're like, well, this would be a much, much more enjoyable and immersive way to go about learning it.
Yeah, and you actually have a youth gaming program that you run, G4E, that
Yes.
you just actually closed up a meeting today, but that's kind of centered around helping kids become better acquainted with how to actually stream and actually do social media, correct?
Yeah, so we focus a lot on streaming and social media management. We also just look at kind of video games in general. So sometimes I throw the kids a game that I know they're not going to like, to try to get them out of that knee-jerk reaction of, well, this game is just horrible, or this game is bad. It's like, okay, well, why? Like, there's obviously something about it that didn't meet your needs, so let's tease that out. Like, what were the things that, make you kind of want to react that way, and get them to understand more about game design elements and how you as a consumer have particular needs, and how games either fit that or don't fit that, and then how to react in a way that is kind of polite and respectful when you meet a game that doesn't meet your needs as a gamer, because it doesn't mean that the game's bad. It just means that it doesn't suit you as a player. And the more that they can understand that, the better consumers that they can be, as well as, more conscientious community members. So hopefully that kind of helps. And then, yeah, we work a lot on streaming, because it's a process. There's etiquette to learn, and there's things to practice. And, most kids don't get somebody there helping them through that learning process. So it can be kind of helpful to have somebody giving you pointers and tips, and it gives you a different way to enter into it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because you look at when we were growing up, we always kind of modeled our idols off of like celebrities and TV shows and just people around us, and we kind of the people that we looked up to were kind of our guidance for that. Thanks to the presence of Mixer and Twitch and other streaming services, there are big people out there that are available to anyone. There's not really any kind of age gating for most stuff. You can say that something's mature rated, but you know, if kids are smart enough, they can work around it.
Yeah.
So you start getting people idolizing the wrong type of attitude, or not understanding that what someone else is doing is an act or a character or a front, and they may not actually act like that in real life. They're just trying to be entertaining for the sake of earning income at that point. So I can see the value very much so in what you're doing, because it helps kind of level the playing field and give an equilibrium to, if you want to do this, there's nothing wrong with doing it, but you want to know what would be the best way to come across and not get flack for something, or not get your account banned, or, you know, start getting into trouble with actual laws that apply to this.
Absolutely. I mean, we had a couple sessions ago, we went through and read the terms of service for Twitch and Mixer, and you know, that was definitely an interesting read, and most people don't read it. You know, we do stream reviews, or stream audits that I call them, and we go through and we look at, you know, a streamer's actual feed. We tend to watch them live. We go through their social media. You know, we're looking at branding and interaction and pulling everything apart. And they've gotten really good. It's interesting because a lot of the stuff that I think would have got their attention before, now they look at it and it's like, well, you know, this guy's attitude's really negative. You know, he's really toxic. He's obviously really trying to keep his viewership in here because he's running, you know, giveaways every 5 to 10 minutes. So the people that are here, they're not here for him. They're here for, you know, what they're getting that's free. So it's neat to see them slowly start to pick up more and more on the different trends that you see in streaming, and seeing their like what they value kind of change over time. The more they kind of study what can be done with streaming. So it's neat. I'm glad I have the opportunity to teach gaming. I think it's a different way to teach some valuable lessons.
I think it's a great way to show that there's just a vast amount of stuff out there for kids to have access to, and to have someone kind of guiding them along is valuable. I know, like, it, you know, if I was a kid in high school and I had a teacher reach out to me and actually approach me about gaming back when, you know, I was probably playing N64 games and spending hours and upon hours, you know, fighting someone in GoldenEye. It's like, if I had someone telling me like, okay, well, these are some games, but there are other games out there like RPGs that you could be getting into, I probably would have picked up so many other genres. But now I'm so hard set in my ways that it's like, if it doesn't have action RPG, I have a hard time wanting to try it out, and I have to get out of that comfort zone. And I'm 37 now, so it's like I feel like I missed the boat on so many really good games because at the time I was so just entrenched in my own like supporting what I liked kind of echo chamber for gaming.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why I love Game Pass just for that. I can download different things and we can walk into class and be like, okay, today we're playing this. Like today we tested out Minute, which is currently in Game Pass, and it's, you know, kind of that 8-bit style, and it plays in 60-second increments, and it's definitely not for everybody. My son did not like it, but he wouldn't have ever tried it on his own, you know. So getting that exposure, like one of the games that one of my other students is playing is another one that he wouldn't have downloaded, but he's been coming back to it every session. So it's definitely a game that he now wants to complete. Like he enjoyed it when we tested it, and so now he's kind of wanting to see how it progresses, you know, through to completion. So had it not been thrown in front of him, he wouldn't have necessarily played it. So yeah, exposure can be huge.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really value with the Game Pass. I think it's done a great job in giving me the opportunity to play games that I probably wouldn't have spent $60 on just based on the little bit of information that I've heard about it. And that's speaking as someone who's actually been, trying to keep up on podcasts for multiple consoles and news and stuff like that. And there's still like somewhere I'm like, nah, I wouldn't try that. But then it comes on Game Pass and I'm like, oh, well, this was really cool. I had a good experience.
Yeah, I feel the same way with Game Pass. It's a great way to try out some really neat little games. I've played a few that I'm really happy that I stumbled upon because yeah, if you have to pay the money for it, like I've walked away from even games that are like $30. It's like, yeah, no. But when they're free and you can just download them and try them, then you get sucked in. It's like, okay, I'm glad I played this.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of playing stuff, we got a new patch on Sea of Thieves, Legends of the Sea. We talked about the Allegiant. Have you had a chance to really dive into this yet? I know it's only a few days yet in.
I've got to play it a little bit.
Have you gotten a chance to try out any of the different legends and go hunting for different things?
Yeah, I haven't got to play too much of it, so I'm definitely not one of those people that's got like all the combinations knocked out already. I got to do a little bit of the legend hunting with my father during stream this week, and got to walk around and do the new NPC conversations to kind of see what's changed. I definitely am intrigued by this update. I feel like a lot is being hinted at. Um,
Oh,
things
totally.
things are definitely progressing, and in a in an
Questionable manner.
yeah, I definitely feel like we're doing things that we probably shouldn't be doing, but it pays out well, so let's just keep doing it. Yeah,
Exactly. So
definitely.
let's talk about it. Let's jump right in. Don't beat around the bush. The masked stranger is out at Reaper's hideout,
Yeah.
and she's requesting three things that she'll pay out well for: villainous skulls, whether they're ashen or not. She's also asking for crates of silk, and she's also asking for captain's chests,
Yeah.
which I'm not sure about the captain's chests other than just gold at this point. But yeah, we've been delivering crates of bones to her. We've been delivering
Yeah.
ancient dark relics. We're basically funding her Kickstarter for Flameheart
Oh yeah.
at this point.
Oh yeah,
Like,
straight up. There's no question about it. No.
yeah,
Yeah, it's and just as that excavation site gets more and more progressed in its excavation, it becomes clear that it doesn't have anything to do with us.
yeah,
It's not a fleshy site. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I'm really intrigued about how Flameheart's gonna come back as a nemesis within the game. Like, how is that gonna play out? Um, because it
So
is, yeah,
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Stitcher Jim, because Stitcher Jim, he was watching stuff while Duke was gone, and Duke was gone. He came back, has no knowledge of the note that was tacked on to every bar in the seas, and thinks that finding Lorena is actually a pretty good idea at this point. But he thinks he found the heart of flame, and I'm curious. How do you think? How do you think it's going to work out with? Because the way I think about it, I feel like Duke went searching for something, he found it, and now he regrets finding it and can't remember how he found it. And
yeah, I have a lot. Duke is a strange character for me in the game because I don't trust him at all. I never really have. But to me, he also sort of plays out as that kind of bumbling, charismatic idiot that has this confidence and this brav like bravos attitude, and yet I don't know what do you say but then doesn't have the wherewithal to not get himself into really bad situations, so he ends up sort of being a pawn. So I don't necessarily know that I feel like Duke is hardcore evil, because I know a lot of people are like, well, Duke's Flameheart, that's it. Like,
yeah,
I feel more like the way he's being written is he is more a pawn, that's being
he feels like
played.
a
He feels like
he feels like a catalyst for
yes,
sure.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I definitely get that feeling like he went on his journey, he found something that he wasn't really happy with, and now he's back, and we're not going to talk about it. Like what?
Yeah,
No,
he's
we're
got
good.
some little bit of repression. He's like, you know what? I had some scrapes, once bitten, twice shy. It's okay. I don't need to get into this right now. But in speaking of Duke the Dark Lord being back, Stitcher Jim is surprisingly missing,
Which is never a
and
good thing.
no, yeah. When the guy that tries to kill an entire fleet, who's taken over stuff and says everything's going to be okay, and he has a new love, and that new love is building a fort out in the middle of the ocean.
Oh yeah, no.
And asking, yeah, it's not good. So
It's all kinds of bad.
I have a feeling somewhere Stitcher Jim is tied up to some sort of sacrificial altar, and
Oh my God.
he's going to be the bumbling idiot that gets us all in trouble and causes Flameheart to come back, because there's something and it's funny too, because Reaper's hideout, back when it was just I-13,
Yeah.
we kind of saw the light inklings that someone had been messing around there.
Yes, yeah.
And at that point it was like, that's where Flameheart is. There's a tunnel down in there. There's a cave system with a chalice, and that chalice is going to be what brings back Flameheart.
Right.
And I've felt like that for a long time. And the more and more we we get to this situation where this masked stranger who has access to Wanda's workshop and is mixing concoctions the way that Wanda did, it is becoming far more apparent that there is going to be a point where she is going to bring back Flameheart. And it makes me think that Mike Chapman has been sitting down and watching Ghostbusters 2 so long that he feels like he needs a child sacrifice to bring back Vigo. And that at some point we're going to get Vigo back in the form of Flameheart, and Stitcher Jim is the baby, and that's my current theory.
We'd finally be rid of Stitcher Jim, though, wouldn't we? I mean, in one sense.
I mean,
he's an opportunist. He's an opportunist, but
I don't know if you've watched The Witcher, but there's this great line from the books that they pulled and put into the series about how Geralt doesn't tell the difference between lesser evil and greater evil. And I feel like this is in the same boat. Like, we're getting rid of Stitcher Jim, but we're getting Flameheart.
Oh yeah,
no.
Oh no. If you would rather have Stitcher Jim than Flameheart, by all means. Stitcher Jim's that just annoying, creepy dude that you want to like shower off of you. And Flameheart's potentially like, doom and apocalyptic. So yeah, not on the same level. Not on the same level at all.
Oh, so here's I'll toss an idea out to you. Just popped in my head. What if Captain Flameheart makes a return, and he's got a fleet and he's got a fort and all this good jazz, and we're having a heck of a time fighting him, and the only thing that can actually defeat him is the fleet of the Grand Maritime Union.
See,
that somehow makes it in.
Yeah, see, because I was really curious, because they definitely hinted very much that the Grand Maritime Union is coming.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden we got hit with Flameheart. And so I was a little like, wait a second, because this felt like it was the next thing on the docket. And now all of a sudden this is here. Like we're obviously dealing. The Flameheart door has been opened. Like we're dealing with this. This update definitely furthers that. Like things aren't slowing down any. With the amount of dead bodies we've brought that woman, she certainly could be raising a fleet. I mean, there's no doubt that we could be seeing a whole new level of Skelly ship involvement. That absolutely could. It absolutely could be, a way to bring in this whole other faction, which should be interesting, because I think that one has the chance of being, a fairly ominous presence in the Sea of Thieves as well.
It would be the introduction of a large fleet of ships trying to wrestle control away from the Merchant Alliance, which up until the point has been a very accommodating faction for us.
Yeah,
And
it's probably been the
it kind
most benign of the factions. Like, you know, they're not out there sucking souls out of people's heads, and they're not, you know,
I
turning into giant golden monsters. So,
I mean, I'm going to push back a little bit. I'm going to say that, yeah, they are pretty benign, but they're forcing us to go to places like Crooked Masts to get a bunch of snakes, and they want all these giant mega kegs. What are they doing with the mega kegs? Like,
yeah, well, okay.
where are those going?
Yeah.
So I want to push back a little bit.
They
I
do.
mean, I've given them a fair amount of crates of cannonballs
Oh,
for
they
some
like
reason.
explosives. They do like their explosives, but so do I. So, you know, I'm not evil. I don't think I'm evil. Maybe I'm evil.
How many ships have you sunk on the seas? Where's your year in review? Let's take a look and see how evil you are.
I'm not. I'm so not. I think it's like 72. It's ridiculous. Everybody else's stats are like in the hundreds, and I'm like, eh. We get sunk. We get sunk so much more than we think, people.
It's so hard when most of your friends on Sea of Thieves are streamers and have all this time to be able to play, and you look at their stats and you're just like, I give up. I'm just gonna pretend like I actually play the game, because apparently I don't.
And I'm just not a PvP player. Like I'll get into fights when it happens, but I'm never my dad's the one that will start stuff. I don't. Like I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like they're shooting at me. It could still turn positive. My dad's like, yeah, no. Like, okay. Sure.
Oh man.
Let's fight back.
That reminds me of any time I've seen Andy and Shelly play together. Like Andy is very much so the role playing like trickster, and Shelly is very much the peacemaker.
Yeah.
So it's really funny to see those two get together.
Yeah, that can be me and my dad sometimes. We sailed, it was like 2 weeks ago, we're sailing through, we've got our Offer Alliance flag up. I'm like, Dad, we've got our Offer Alliance flag up, as he's sending a cannonball over the top of somebody's ship. He's like, I'm not shooting at them. I'm like, you literally just shot at them. He's like, I shot over them. Like, that's not that much of a difference, Dad. Not that much of a difference. I love you. He would be so much happy. Yeah. So like I try nowadays to like let him go a little more often, because yeah, I hold him back. He wants to be that bloodthirsty pirate more often, and I get in the way.
Oh, that's too funny. Yeah, I love that. I definitely have times. I find the more friends I have that I'm playing with on the seas, the more carefree and cutthroat I get. I'm much more cavalier about going and trying to murder people when I'm with more people. As soon as I'm alone, I'm like, no, I can't handle this. I'm gonna sail around and trick them.
You get a lot more conservative. No, my son's just bloodthirsty. You put him on a ship and everybody's going down. If he can see your sails, you're doomed. Like that's it. You're not going to survive. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So, with the update, we kind of touched on what's going on over at Reaper's Hideout, but yeah, there is essentially a lot of work being put into turning that place into a fort, using a lot of the wrecks that are up around the actual island.
Yeah, it's definitely
the killer whale is gone, and yeah, so that eventuality will definitely make some headway in the coming update, and I have a feeling that we'll probably see the culmination of all this effort right around the time that the second anniversary rolls in. I imagine that'll probably be when we see it happen.
I could see that being a big update. It would make sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure.
And have you picked a Gilded Voyage yet?
No, I need to.
I haven't either, and I've been holding off.
Still have my Gilded Voyages from last year.
Do you really?
I do.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Man. So you've just been hanging on to it for a rainy day?
It's horrible. But yeah. So now it'll be another one that I can hold on to. I'll just my whole inventory is just gonna be like, well, I got gilded everything. So how much time do you have? Yeah.
It'd be a really good charity stream if you ever wanted to.
It would. Originally I was holding on to them because my son was really close to Pirate Legend and had some account issues. So I was holding on to them for him. And then I used to join into like Nafe Pacewell was doing a lot of loot stacking to help people hit legends. So I always thought,
Still is.
Yeah. No, he definitely still is. His community has just gotten so huge. Um, so I always thought like, well, I'll use those, when I sail on one of his efforts. But then I always land up on a ship that's got like an Athena's down, and then we just do
Hmm.
the Athena. So I have them. I definitely, I mean, I don't need them. I definitely am not chasing any of my Athena levels at all. Um, so I think for me, I want to wait until I've got a worthy cause for laying those down.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that'd be a good thing to if you ever wanted to boot up a stream and start doing a charity event. That'd be a
Yeah.
great way to incentivize. Whoever donated the most, they get access to the turn in, and just start pitting viewers against each other who can donate the most. So, but yeah. So if anyone listening to this hasn't figured it out by now, we have access to Gilded Voyages, something that I thought was actually missing during the holiday event, the
Right?
gift giving event. I thought we were going to be getting Gilded Voyages. We didn't, and turns out it was just a little late. So it's like a present that you find behind the tree that you forgot about, and you're like, oh hey, by the way, the thing that you really wanted was actually just behind. I stuck it and forgot. It's happy Merry Christmas. Sorry. So those are available. Those will be available up until the next update. So whenever the next February update comes in. And to boot, anyone that logs in before the 22nd, 4 p.m. GMT on the 22nd, they actually get credit to Xbox or Sea of Thieves giving out new liveries, or at least new sales and an emote, if I'm correct. But
Yeah.
yeah, so Sea of Thieves hit 10 million players. Probably not all concurrent, but as a result of hitting 10 million player base, they are giving away this X marks the spot, X being the Roman numeral for 10, X marks the spot sales and emote that as long as you log in to the game on your main account or any accounts that you have before the 22nd of January, when the February update comes out, you will actually receive those liveries and emotes. And it looks awesome. What did you think of them?
I love them. I think they're great.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
beautiful. I love this idea that they're kind of giving new stuff. And uh, I was actually, now that I think about it, I was actually kind of wondering, we didn't get a new charity sales
We
this
have not.
update.
No, we have not. I was
And
actually kind of wondering where that was.
yeah, I went into when the update came out, I went into the Pirate Emporium and I bought the bundle, which is currently bugged and not rewarding all of the doubloons. So if you want to get that bundle, hold off. Hopefully towards the end of the month, they'll actually figure that out and fix that. But yeah, I went in there thinking that we were going to get a new charity because everything
Yeah.
always refreshes every month, and there's no charity sales this month. So I'm not sure why they took down the special effect one, if that's a legal thing that they can only offer it for a certain amount of time. But I felt like they could have just left that one in and
Yeah.
let us give
They
more
still,
access to that.
right? Yeah, I kind of figured that they would kind of roll from one to another.
Hmm.
Obviously that hasn't been the case. I'm excited to see what other charities come in the future. I'm really happy that they started doing that. I know there's been, I know like a year ago, I know I did concept art for a breast cancer ship. I called the Phoenix, and
Yeah.
because a lot of people
Yeah.
at that point were calling for that. Why can't we have, charity? Most of the people, yeah, they wanted charity sales in the game. So when they
Hmm.
finally announced that they were doing it, I was really excited. I think that's definitely, a great way to continue kind of giving back to, the community at large, while also
Yeah.
providing, something that everybody's been asking for quite a while. So I'm excited to see what else comes down the way. I'm really glad Able Gamers was featured. I mean, they're a great organization. There's a lot more to do. So we'll definitely see what what happens. And then I've just been enjoying the latest set of liveries kind of in general. I feel like we went through a while there where I wasn't in love with them. Like People would people would
Oh,
bark at me. They're like, "Why didn't you get any of this stuff?" I'm like, "Well, I haven't finished my combinations because I just get that set of sails, and I don't really want those." So, no,
yeah.
like the incentive wasn't there. Whereas the last few that they put out, um, they're getting more intricate and more detailed, and I'm really loving, whoever's doing this recent round of ship liveries. They're doing a really good job. I'm liking your aesthetic.
Yeah, yeah, I love the cameo stuff.
Oh, yeah, that
It's
ship's
it
beautiful.
looks great.
Yeah.
The thing that I've been wanting the most out of the liveries, and I understand that there's some limitations around how they have to actually do this, but I've really wanted something that's as intricate as the skeleton ships for purchasable liveries, like the ships, like the barnacle figurehead with the mermaid that has
Mm-hmm.
the wood planks kind of tacked onto it
Mm-hmm.
mishappenly. Like I love the idea of drastically changing up the actual ship as opposed to just slapping a new color on the side and calling it good.
Yeah, and I think it yeah. I mean, I think that would be great. And I've heard, some people have talked about it in the past. We're like, well, what if we had, two different options for the terrapin over the back, that canvas cover for
Mm,
like the sloop. So
yeah,
you could have this one or you could have that one or, certain pre-selected damage or, changing like the water line railing on the ship. Um, or even changing the sails, like, do a preset. So like, yeah, I would like to fly these sails, but I want them to be tattered. So
yeah.
there could be a combination of how things sit. I'm sure it just makes it way more complicated. Um,
Oh yeah,
but
for
it would
sure.
be fantastic. I mean, you know, everybody likes the customization of their ships. I get yelled at all the time for my color choices, which I think is funny because literally I build ships constantly. But yeah, in game apparently I run really ugly vessels, so there it goes. I can build
Hey,
pretty
you
ships,
like
I can't sail on them.
you like what you like, and the rest of the world be damned if they don't
Right?
like it.
Right?
It's all that matters. So yeah, there's a whole new line of liveries that are available. I think the ones that are in the actual game in the black market are called the Aristocrat
Yes.
ship liveries, which I love. I love the figurehead because the figurehead is the woman with the dove releasing it out, and that harkens back to the art book, which was one of the last few remaining figureheads that were pre-concept
Right.
artwork that they put in that no one had actually seen in the game. So it's like we're finally getting to the point 2 years after the game launch that everything that was in the art book as far as ship liveries has finally been released in some form or another.
Now the question is,
So
will we get all the ship models in?
oh man, I would love that. I would love to see different types of ships for the same ship crew. Like if year 2 goes down and we start year 3 and year 3 update comes out, the thing that I would love to see the most, more than new biomes, is different ship types for the same crew size
Yeah.
and being able to change your ship in game without having to leave the session that you're in. Because
That
those
would
are the
be, yeah, that would be fantastic.
yeah, I would love to be able to jump into a party where I know 3 of my buddies are in there and they've been on a brig, and I want to join in, but they've got a ton of supplies and a ton of loot, and they don't want to take all the time to dump all that and then lose it, just so that I can jump into a galleon with them. Like I would just love to be able to swap out the ship and join in on their crew, and
Yeah.
having that ability would be amazing. But anyway, getting back to the Aristocrat ship set, it's a color I'm not too fond of, to be
It's
honest.
like rose gold. I can't stand the
Yeah,
color. I can't stand it. It's another
yeah,
one
not a
I
big fan.
no.
So,
No.
but if
But
you're into that, then
I
all
like
for it.
yeah, I like the intricacy of the ship elements. Like I
Yes.
there's an aesthetic to it that I like. I don't like the color palette. Everything else about it I think is quite nice. They're moving in a much more detailed direction. Um,
Yeah.
which I enjoy. I think it's going to allow for some really cool combinations on people's ships. I've seen some beautiful combinations on ships, and some of the stuff that they've pulled out in the last couple months that have, kind of a basis in those cooler colors. They mix really well together. Um,
Hmm.
so I'm not too surprised that they switched more, kind of to a warmer color with this particular set. But yeah.
Yeah, I still feel like the way they're going about the cosmetics is still. It don't. I'm not a big fan of the way that they're going about the colors for the cosmetics. I still feel like I would prefer if all of the cosmetics in the game acted the same way that hair and dye systems do.
So you could change
You buy
them?
a yeah, you buy a paint set and you apply the paint set to the liveries that you have because those are your favorite liveries. You just aren't a fan of the colors, and you had more agency
Right.
with the actual colors per piece.
Well, and I think if they ever really allow customizations of ships, that would be the easiest way to do it.
Hmm.
To be able to say like these are the set liveries. This is how each color option or each dye sits on those liveries. So you could change things up. You could pick this particular ship hull, but have it be, blue instead of green or whatever. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I think that would be a great way to increase customization. And also great
they
because yeah, there's some beautiful detail work in the Aristocrat um, livery set. The color will keep me from picking it up.
yeah, same here. I
Yeah.
picked it up, but it's just a completionist thing at this point.
Right.
I I also love the idea. I would love to have the ability to apply variants of actual icons and or iconography to the actual sails and ship itself, similar to how there are tattoo and
Yeah.
scar sets.
Yeah.
Like we have all these different tattoo sets. No one I know uses any of the default tattoo sets. I personally use the swashbuckler one that has the old Keelhauled logo on my back, but I mean they have these kind of mishmash of tattoos, and the way that's set out, it's just a blanket skin that covers all of your character. It's not like you can
Right.
kind of pull one out and piece it together. But even if they took that template of having different shapes and just being able to click on that shape and change the actual image on a ship sail,
Oh
it,
yeah, I
it,
mean,
it would be cool.
with how the newer sail designs are coming up and even how I've, done some of mine, you could have corner work and center work and like it could be broken up into different fields on that sail so you could pick, well, I want the fleur de lis here in the corners, but I want, the big skull, whatever, in the center, and I want them to be
Yeah,
tatted. Like, yeah, there's definitely ways that they can do it. I think it's just a matter of how difficult is that programming and what is it going to affect when you have that much variation.
definitely.
But it would be unbelievably cool. Yeah, I mean, to be able to go in
Yeah.
and have that much customization, it'd be awesome.
There
I'd
was
be
a time a while back where you could take the Pirate Legend liveries, or no, it was the Athena liveries, the hull, and you could then put the Kraken set over it,
right.
and you got that kind of iridescent black.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
That was a bug that I would pay for,
yeah.
and it's something that I think Rare could definitely add that to the list of wants from the community
Yeah.
and be certain that everyone would probably get a real
Yeah,
kick out of it.
that was a fun glitch. That was like, ooh, that's kind of nice looking.
It was really pretty. I loved it.
Yeah.
So with the black market, the aristocrat ship set isn't the only thing that came in. We also got some new weapons, some mercenary instruments, and some night shine parrot weapons and clothing. I love that they're still committed to putting out this much cosmetics each month. I know it's a recolor, and that's fairly insignificant to have to go in to do. It's just a matter of programming in the different items and stuff and then recoloring. But how do you feel about the recolor system for the different items?
I don't hate it. I didn't like the parrot stuff when it came out. I didn't purchase it. It wasn't to me it was too bright, it was too vibrant. So when the night shine came out, all of a sudden I did like the set. So I have purchased a lot of the stuff. Because like you were saying before, sometimes the set comes out and it's not the physical design of it that you dislike. It's the color palette of it. And so for me, I definitely feel that with the parrot. But I have to say, like when it comes to sales, yeah, like I've definitely felt some frustration with sales, especially if they're in the Reaper family, because I feel like a lot of them have just been, you know, a lot of the same thing.
Hmm.
I do like, when new styles come out and it's a completely new style. I think it's great because it's something new and it's something different and it completely changes the feel and it gives you so many more options. Whereas just changing the color doesn't as much. I still like it, but like was it the
The
um
Kraken set, where
yeah,
it just got darker.
still didn't, and I still didn't really like the stuff. Like it's like, oh, great, you know?
Yeah.
Um so yeah, like I I think it's the easiest way to maintain this monthly cycle. I think you'd be much harder pressed to do a completely new, you know, content every month,
Yeah.
to the extent that they have. So I understand why you've got to kind of do that reskin. I think it's the easiest way to be able to make that monthly deadline and still have some nice stuff. Like it's still pretty. But yeah, I think eventually if it continues to stay where we're just consistently getting things reskinned, you're definitely going to get people complaining about it. I mean, it's the same people complain about voyages essentially being reskinned. We
Yeah.
want variation and difference. So, if there's a nice mix of, okay, well, here's, we've done a recoloration of this set, but we've also introduced, you know, two pieces of this new set, well, then that would be kind of cool because then you're like, well, here's this totally new thing that they're starting to kind of piece out. And even if we don't get the entire set 1 month and it takes 2 or 3 months to kind of come down to us, at least you know it's there and you know it's coming and you're excited. Like, well, I picked up the capstan and the wheel this month, but next month you're like, what are the cannons going to look like? And
Yeah.
it
So
allows to build in a little more anticipation.
So I'm curious because I want to throw this at you and kind of toss a curveball. Do you think that you would rather get rid of the large amount of emote bundles that are coming in through the microtransactions and put that effort towards new cosmetics that are different physical types?
I think I'm the wrong person to ask because I'm not a fan of the emotes. I
All right.
I think I've
Actually,
purchased like one, maybe two.
I,
I don't use them. But
I'm going to
everybody
push back and say you're the perfect
they're
person to
perfect.
ask because Rare wants to know why people aren't buying them if they aren't buying them. So please, like you not buying them, why what about it is the reason that you aren't invested in picking up the emote bundles?
None of them are like the only emote I want. I want to be able to wave after I've fallen off a ship and I'm in the water. That's all I want. Like that's all I want. That's all I feel like I'm really missing. Because I do that a lot. I I don't, and maybe it's the way you interact with other players. Like for me, that's a very audio experience. I'm talking to the people
Hmm.
that I'm playing with. I don't necessarily like it's a first person game. I'm not looking at my pirate. I'm not,
Yeah.
so to pull back and see this graphic kind of go out where I'm doing this emote. The only time I use an emote is when I want to take a picture. That's it. That's it. For me
Yeah.
personally. Um, or I want to taunt somebody that's fallen off of my ship. That's it. I don't use anything else. Where I mean, the other people that I know, then they're constantly blowing kisses, but they do that to piss me off. Or, I, yeah, I just, if it was a third
That's
person game, then I would
mhm.
totally understand the emote. But to me, pulling myself out of that view to be in third person, to do the emote, I don't like it. So I don't buy them. I don't use them.
So here's a good here's a good thing that I would. So okay, so you don't like pulling out a third person because you enjoy the immersion that comes with the first person perspective,
Yeah.
which at listening, I started listening back to the original podcast that Rare put out, the Tavern Talk stuff, and that was something that Mike Chapman has spoken directly to 3 years, 4 years ago, that was a core element of why they wanted to go first person, is they wanted to keep that immersion.
Right.
Rare has now decided that they are going to be releasing microtransactions that enhance the ability to pull back out of the first person perspective. So how important is we've spent a lot of time talking about cosmetics and how we want to have more agency and variance with the cosmetics. How do you feel about having clothing cosmetics that are colors that you would have to use an emote to be able to see your pirate? And I'm seeing two heads butting against each other, where you want to have customizations, you want to have stuff that you like to see on your pirate and on your ship, but you don't like buying emotes that bring more interactivity with in a physical form to be able to see your pirate doing stuff.
Give me camera mode. Give me picture mode.
Boom! Thank you. That's
all I want. Yeah.
Out of the park, nailed it. That's what I want. That's what I was hoping you were gonna go for. Yeah, no, I want a camera mode.
Yeah, I would love a camera mode. I think that would be fantastic. And who knows? If I had a camera mode, I might actually use more emotes. It changes, having that increase in control of camera angle, depth of field, all of that. It changes your interaction with your screenshot and allows you to do more like positioning and stuff. But yeah, I would much rather have that than anything. I don't need 10 new emotes every month. If you gave me camera mode, I'd be happy.
So kind of getting back into the update. There are a lot of new emote bundles. There's the Sovereign emote, the Gold Hoarder emote, the Romance emote. Those 3 bundles, on top of having 5 pages that you can now configure for radials, for emotes, which it's starting.
Much.
So
it's too much.
It's too much. One of the things that Rare prided themselves on when the game first came out was the intuitive nature of playing Sea of Thieves, how they didn't hold your hand for anything and you kind of work stuff out.
Yeah.
Now I feel like we're getting into the territory where they're tacking on a lot of stuff as quality of life, but it is essentially hurting the ease of coming into the game and understanding stuff.
Oh, the game is really hard to come into. And I'm really happy that Maiden Voyage came out, because I think that helps. But having now watched friends of mine who didn't play Sea of Thieves before Maiden Voyage play Maiden Voyage and watch them go through it, even they're missing a lot of the content. Like, I feel like those of us that have been immersed in the community for a long time, we go through and we're like, oh, well, you've got to get the journals and you got to do this and you got to do that. And we know because we already know the game dynamics. But if you don't know and you're just coming into the game and you haven't researched Maiden Voyage, you're going to go there, you're going to talk to Ramsey, you're going to go dig up your chest, you're maybe going to do one thing with the tool, and then you're going to get on your ship and you're going to leave, and you're never going to have explored the rest of it or tried any of the rest of the dynamics that are there. Because it's
right.
It's very immersive, and that's why whenever I have a friend or you see somebody on Twitter that's like, I'm thinking about picking up Sea of Thieves, it's like, okay, well, find somebody to sail with you, or if you're streaming it, find somebody who can sit in your chat, because even that can make a difference. It's just sitting in a new person's chat and helping them out. Obviously, you don't give them the answers, but I've watched people come near to tears because they can't figure something out. And it's like, if you're not there to be able to go like, okay, hold on, breathe. This is what you got to do. Because there's so many moving pieces and it can be extremely intimidating. And you're in there with everybody. Like, you're getting mauled while you're also like, and it's hard because so many people now have taken to using the default livery as their aggressor livery, that I feel like a lot of people now, where you used to run up on a ship that was in default and be like, hey, are you new? Do you need help? Now it's like you just start lobbing iron into them, assuming that they're not new and they don't need help and they're there to steal stuff. So I feel like that almost sets up the newbies for an even harder situation, because now you've got people gunning for them, because that's become the new aggro skin, so to speak.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got a developer buddy of mine that I sail with regularly who it's almost like his catchphrase, but he constantly says that Sea of Thieves is his favorite game that he'll never recommend to people. Uh, and it kills me every time he says it because it's a
Yeah.
game that I love. I love this game so much, and I want people to play it, but I run into the situation where I'm like, it's going to be really hard to recommend this to someone
Yeah.
if they don't have someone to guide them through it. Like
Yep.
I want to be there to help. Like I had one of my other podcasting buddies. He quit the game because he got in. He something happened and sunk, and then he was like, "Nope, that's it. I'm done." And
That's
I'm like, ah,
I hear that so often. I mean, I run into that. So, oh, I played that game once. Only
yeah.
once? Well, then I got this and I got that and then again and then I rage quit. It's like, oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah, I mean, the good thing is the community is largely wonderful about helping new people out, even if it's just sailing with somebody once or twice. I know when my friends that stream have tried out the game, I've definitely tried to like bring people in to even just sit and chat and help them. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's hard because obviously I love this game. But it's a hard one to come into. There are so many moving pieces. There's so much to learn. Some of it is very intuitive, and some of it's not. Like there's just so much now that, people start off and it's like you're trying to figure out how to sail your ship, but then there's these clouds in the sky and this thing just popped up out of the water next to you, and oh my God, there's a ship coming, and why does it have two sails when my ship has one? It's like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And the way the way the timing works every once in a while, you can get PvE to death
Oh
and
yeah.
have no recourse. And
Yeah.
if you're like popping it on, like we talked earlier about just trying out games. Sea
Yeah.
of Thieves was the first game to come to Game Pass that was a first party day one launch kind of thing. And if you don't know how to play the game and you pop it in and you go in solo and you don't know anyone,
Yeah.
no one's talking to you. Everyone's trying to kill you. You don't know who's friend or foe. You don't know
Yeah.
what's an imminent threat. And the audio cues, if you don't know what those audio cues are, that's really hazardous.
Yeah.
And you're going to learn. But unless you're dedicated into wanting to play a pirate game, it's going to really turn some people off
Yeah.
because they don't understand. Like we actually just had a new audio cue from Johnny V put into the game where you scope down your spyglass and look at a skeleton ship. And when you pull out, you get this audio cue. But Gullible Gambit, myself, a bunch of other people had no clue what we were hearing and why we were hearing it. And it wasn't until we got on Twitter and had it confirmed by people that it was
Right.
like,
That's
oh,
what's
it's a skeleton ship.
yeah.
That's what it is. And yeah, you run into that situation all the time with Sea of Thieves where you're constantly trying to work out what's happening in the game because nothing explicitly tells you what that is. So you start getting that kind of like hearsay here and there. And that's cool when it's like, how does the Kraken come?
Right.
How do you deal with a Kraken or what causes a skeleton ship to pop up? That's cool, but when it's an audio cue and the game is, I would say, very dependent on audio cues,
Very
that
much
can
so.
be disconcerting.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah, I mean it's big. It's a lot. The game is not easy to navigate. You have to be somebody who is resilient and who handles frustration well and who's willing to tease out problems on your own. The people who want a clear objective, or a clear even like power ladder, it's definitely not going to be a game for you. It's not designed for that. I mean, even the people that I know that are like, well, I beat the game. You beat the game? Like, are we playing the same?
Yeah.
Are you playing the same game? Because there's no like end thing to this game. Well, and then it just got boring because there's nothing left to do. I'm like, well, this game is kind of driven by your imagination. So if you're needing the game to drive the play, you need to go find another game. Like this game is based on player driven experience. If you can't get in here and turn this into your playground, then yeah, you've probably picked the wrong title. Or be one of those people that comes in for every content update, play the update, and then leave. Like and that's not a wrong way to play it. Um, it's just it's
Yeah.
not the game's not for everybody, and that's fine. Like no video game is for everyone. And definitely not Sea of Thieves. It's doing something really different. And I love it. And when I saw that it was coming out, I was so excited because it was doing something that was so different. Like it had definitely decided to think outside the box and be something new. And I'm really glad, that Rare had the balls to do that because it could have tanked. And it was a rough first year. I mean, all the press that came out of that year was not glowing.
Yeah.
People had to take a long time to wrap their head around what it meant to have this open world sandbox ship simulator-esque sort of like, what is it? What do you mean there's no power progression? What do you mean there's no, it,
Yeah,
it,
people really didn't understand
yeah,
just the concept of there's no growth to your
yeah,
character except reputation and prowess. Like the power you get comes directly from your understanding of the game, and
yeah,
that's
and
it.
that's it. Yep.
The only yeah. The only way you can beat someone is if you outplay them, and that is one of the few things that I think a lot of other people they I feel like other games that don't have this aspect are playing or giving players a crutch because
Yep.
they see the light at the end of the tunnel and they see this power creep that they can get for, and they can get all the attachments for their guns, and they can level up their powers, and they can out level the content, and they can go in and other games have taught them that if you can't outskill it, just outpower it.
Yes. Yeah.
If you beat your head against the wall enough times, you're going to break down the door. And Sea of Thieves is not like that. Like
Yeah.
you really have to understand. I think was it yesterday? No, it was the day before. I was sailing with a buddy, and we were in a sloop, and we went over to the spire in the middle of the sea because someone had dropped off a reaper's chest, and we knew it was a trap, and we were looking forward to it. And as soon as we got there, we looked for the chest. I couldn't find it, but at the time we had sailed through a skeleton fleet, and it had aggroed us. So my buddy, who's really good, was fighting off two ships, and I was like, I still can't find this thing. He's like, all right, and I'm like, do you want me to come back? He's like, yeah, you might as well. So we came back. Sure enough, a brig sailed to us, and we figured, okay, those are the guys that set the trip. They were just lying in wait, waiting for us to come find it.
Right.
And these guys felt like they were taking a break from COD and wanted to come kill some pirates.
Yep.
And be the bro pirate. So it's like three guys on a brig. Two of them kept trying to board us and snipe us, and eventually we outsailed them whilst dealing with a skeleton fleet. Like we sunk the sloop, and we gathered up the treasure while fighting off a galleon and the brigantine player crew. Yeah, and then we went and we tried to sink the actual brig because we knew like all we had to do was put enough holes and fire on the ship to the point where they wouldn't be able to manage it because they were too busy trying to shoot off and climb our ladder and board us. Well,
Right.
we could defend boarding fairly easily because we're both really experienced. And eventually another sloop came in and started firing on the brig. So the brig started dealing with two sloops. The sloop actually went to the spire, found the chest, and took it to Reaper's hideout and turned it in, while we went for the galleon and finished up the skeleton fleet because it was on the last ship. And we got way more treasure out of it. But it's like situations like that. I can't imagine a new person coming into it and trying to deal with that.
No.
But I understand that the people that come into this probably want to come into it from the aspect of it being kind of like a comfort food game where you're coming to hang out and chill and just relax and have some fun and not play it too seriously. But
Well,
it's
I mean, and you see that ultimately that divides the community.
mhm.
Even
Yeah.
with, those of us that have been playing from day one. You've got a certain group that really love that PvE aspect and don't want any part of the PvP, and the fact that the game is a PvPvE presents challenges, both for new players and for existing ones. You never know what you're going to get. You never know what that ship on the horizon is going to do. And like a friend of mine, she just started playing, and she got done streaming, and she's like, I got sunk. But then they came back and they felt bad for me because they realized I was new and they helped me. And I'm like, well, see, that's Sea of Thieves right there. You know,
Yeah.
you've got this horrible, gnarly, scary combat, but then at the same time, a lot of our community realizes when you're new, and so they felt bad and they came back and they, they sailed with her for a little bit and helped her out. You never know.
Yeah.
But
It's
that's
true.
part of the charm of the game for me is, there's days that my dad and I log in and we can sail for 3 hours and we see ships on the horizon, but everyone's minding their own business. And then there's other days where you're just like, oh my God, stop chasing us. Can you get
Yeah.
and you get sunk and you sink other people and it's just a constant, you never turn anything in because it's just a constant battle from the moment you start to the moment you end. But then the next
Hmm.
day it's somewhere in between. So that player interaction makes the game a different experience every time you log in it. And that can't be said for a lot of
So
games. Like, it's not the same.
yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's usually a lot more cut and dry with
Yeah.
pretty much every other game you can play on the market. And to kind of speak to your experience, there's two things I wanted to touch on. You spoke about how a lot of the way that you play is audible. How do you deal with the it's hard to kind of talk around this, but how do you deal with being a woman on the seas when you come across other crews?
Uh, um, it's just being a woman in gaming, period, is hard. There's really no way around it. It's one of the issues that comes up the most in conferences when you're talking about introducing esports into the school system. It's why a lot of people are shy of introducing it to middle school and elementary school. It's something that I run into when I talk to kids when I sub. It's a very early age that a lot of boys decide that women don't belong in gaming. I find that I hit that wall at third grade, uh, and it
Wow.
just gets harder from there to get through that mentality that we don't belong. Um, I feel like Sea of Thieves overall is probably one of the most welcoming gaming communities I have been in, and probably one of the most respectful. Uh, I am very hesitant about using game chat in Sea of Thieves, which is unfortunate, because it definitely makes the experiences so much better. But I
Hmm.
stream, and I know that being a female, especially being live on air, it it can go bad so quickly. My dad and I have definitely
Yeah.
experienced some pretty uh, just extremely graphic, vulgar exchanges, and so have when I've sailed with some of my female friends in the evening. Um, some of the stuff we've run into has just been ridiculous. I mean, you do what you can. You capture and you report, and you hope that somebody does something.
Hmm.
But it's hard. I mean, it's changing. Like it's definitely better than it was, like 3 years ago. But it's slow.
Yeah.
Like it's slow. Oh, there's a
Yeah.
cat.
I yep. She wandered in. Hi, Coraline. I know it's ridiculous, and they should really be better. Guys should just be better in general. I agree. But yeah, so I was kind of wondering, like you talked about being able to report, and I think that one of the things that I think a lot of people should keep in mind is if you do run into that kind of harassment online, please report it because
Yeah,
the only way it's going to stop is if repercussions start coming.
yeah. And I think the great thing is Rare has been very. Um, are you there?
Yep.
Okay. Rare's been very uh, proactive. Like they've made a lot of, very public statements about what is or isn't appropriate within their community as far as behavior. And a lot of games don't do that. And they also present their game in a way that is very respectful to, I would say all the different representations of gender. Like
Yeah.
it's a game that allows you to be who you are, in a lot of ways. So you've got a development company that doesn't automatically make you feel other. Where some development companies, you're playing a game and you're going off into battle in your metal bra and your high heel thigh highs, and you're like, okay, great, yeah, yeah, this company's really going to care if somebody's objectifying me in a game because they're already
Hmm.
objectifying me in the game. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
a
it's true.
very male-centered industry still. It's slowly changing. There's definitely people out there that are doing what they can, um, but it's hard. I understand why a lot of people I know don't use game chat, and it's unfortunate, but you've got to be ready to switch out of it unless you want to deal with, you know, the, the junk that can sometimes come through the airwaves. But again, it's not as
Yeah.
bad as playing like COD. Like I definitely found Call of Duty to be much more aggressive. Like
The
there's
the most fun I've had playing Call of Duty, especially Modern Warfare with friends, is when I'm in Discord with my friends and I have literally muted every single other voice possible.
yeah, yeah,
Because I hear what they say to, or I hear what my buddies say to the other people, and some of them are throwing out stuff, and I'm like, really, dude? Do you feel like you really want to say that to them? Like,
yeah,
you feel like down in your soul, you're the one that wants to be reflecting that same thing back to them. And then it's like in my mind, I'm like thinking, that like we should try to not engage with that whenever
yeah.
it happens, because if you feed the beast gets bigger. And
Well, it becomes norm. I mean, and that's what it is.
yes,
It's becomes a cultural norm, and you'll hear it comes up. Well, that's just gaming. Like, well, no, I'm sorry. That's
yeah,
BS. Like, there's no reason that is just gaming. Like, it doesn't have to be this boys' club that's horribly abusive to people. We don't have to be that way. You most of my experience with gamers is that generally speaking, gamers are there to help each other out. Like we are a friendly group. We are very socially driven. We bend over backwards to help our buddies. There's no reason our community needs to be toxic. It,
yeah.
it really doesn't. That bravado doesn't need to be there. You can be a gracious winner. You can be a gracious loser. Just because you lost doesn't mean somebody was hacking. Like there's
Oh yeah, yeah. Or it was just a difference between Xbox console
yeah,
controller play
yeah,
and mouse and keyboard,
yeah.
which kind of getting back on topic.
Opt
Adventure
out.
has crossplay opt
Yeah.
out, so you predominantly play on Xbox, if I'm
Yep.
right,
Yep.
correct?
I play on
How do you?
Xbox. I have never. I don't want opt out. I don't not want it. I realize that there are people out there who feel very strongly about it, and for them, I'm very happy that they have this ability to opt out because I know people have felt really, really strongly about it. I don't need it. I've played with a lot of people that are PC players. I run into people that are PC players. Ran into people that were PC players the other night, and they completely cleaned my clock. But I don't. I run into people that hack periodically, and when you run into somebody that's hacking because the things that they're doing should be impossible. You shouldn't be able to one-shot me on full health with a blunderbuss from the other side of an island. Like that shouldn't be able to happen. So if you're
Yeah,
doing that, I'm gonna call a hack, and they will always get back. Well, blunderbusses can one-shot you. I'm like, yeah, at close range. Like here,
yeah.
I need a spyglass to see you. That's we're not no. Um, most do they have an advantage? Yeah, absolutely they have an advantage. Um, but it's not arena, it's adventure. Do I
Hmm.
occasionally get murdered? Yeah, absolutely. But I don't I don't feel that I need to remove myself from that experience because it's not every time I load in. It's periodically I run into, that one PC ship that just murders me. Um, so yeah,
How do you feel about the messaging behind this? Because the only indication I've seen in game, if I'm not taking a look at outside updates, because I'm going to be honest, there are other games that I play that I don't follow the patch notes for, and I
yeah.
rely on just learning as I get into the game. And
If
I
you don't
feel like if
if you don't follow the patch notes, you don't know it exists.
yes,
Because my dad,
the only
yeah, my dad logged in. My dad sets up stream. sets up the Ship 4 stream, and I asked him, I'm like, did you made sure that we're playing with everybody, right? And he's like, what are you talking about? Yeah, it's buried in settings. So if you don't follow patch notes, you're not going to know. Like it's one of those things where I feel like everyone there were like two responses. It's going to kill the servers because nobody's going to do crossplay, and then there's like, well, it has to happen because all the horrible PC players. The reality is the bulk of the population that plays the game, I don't really think stays up to date with patch notes or dev updates because I certainly know when I run into them, they have no idea what's going on with any of that. So they don't know. They're in it. They have no idea that it's been added.
Yeah. So to just kind of give people an idea, if you want to be able to play with just Xbox players, and this is something I've talked about in previous episodes as well too, in the settings there is an option that you can turn off your preference or turn on your preference to just play with Xbox console controller players, not even just Xbox mouse and keyboard players, because
just controller,
Yeah, the closer we get to the Xbox Series X, I think the more more Xbox console players will start to realize that they're really just PC players. They're just adhering to this controller setting in their mind, because the architectures has been the same for a while now, and we're just basically feeding custom silicone to console players at this point instead of buying outsourced products and stuff. So I'm glad that this is an option. I know that there's one person on Twitter for sure that has been adamant about how crossplay should be, like it should be split already. Like you should have to opt in to join with PC players if you're playing on Xbox.
See, and I think that goes against everything that Rare has stood for with this game.
It's
publicly speaking.
It actually has.
This game shouldn't be designed like that. The fact that they've allowed an opt-out is great, but to say that it should be the other way around is completely out of line with the design progress of this game.
Yeah, and I honestly feel like at this point in the game's life cycle, the player base is now large enough that I feel like you can support having the opt-out and not run into a scenario where you're constantly shifting servers because players are dropping in and dropping out and you're being moved over to new Azure servers.
Yeah.
You can reliably jump into Adventure if your Xbox opt-out and have a full server and fairly certain not have to worry about getting shifted to a new server too frequently if players drop in and drop out and stuff.
Yeah.
So if they had done this at launch, I think that would have been a different issue.
I think it would have been, I think it would have been detrimental. I am really curious. I'm hoping that the people that have lobbied for opt-out and who are selecting opt-out consistently, I would really love to hear from them in a month or two to see if it has brought the experience that they've wanted. Because I am curious to see if it really is going to fix the issues that have existed for them to a degree that they're really comfortable with. Because, some of the stuff, toxicity was one of the big issues that kept coming up. And I'm like, I don't know. I played with a lot of Xbox players and they can be really toxic too. So I'm curious to see, what shifts they see and if it does end up giving them what they've wanted. I hope it does, but
it will. It will, for the reason that they have already been predisposed to believe that it's going to be a fair ground. So, like, going into it, they already know that any fight that they take was a matter of skill.
Right.
Because there's no way that there's any variance between a launch Xbox and an Xbox Pro or an Xbox One Pro. Like there's no difference in their mind. So clearly they were outplayed, or they weren't, or they beat the other person purely out of skill and had nothing to do with the difference in system specs. Because of course it all just comes down to your controller and the fact that the Xbox, I just blanked on what the Pro controller is called for Xbox.
Like the Elite?
I think it's just Pro. The Elite, thank you. Yeah, the Elite controller with its extra buttons and stuff has no impact on your ability to outplay someone on Xbox. It's a totally level playing field, of course. It's I don't know if I was being I probably came across a little too sincere there. That was all sarcasm.
I was gonna say I
yes.
live with one of those controllers, and mine can't even like hold a candle to it.
Yeah. It's regardless of whether or not they could have put in a big old display in the middle of your screen that popped in for Xbox controller players that said you are only playing with Xbox controller players right now. They would go out and they would play the same exact way that they play now and still feel like they are coming across, unless they sat there and paid attention to someone super spinning really quickly with their mouse. Like I still see Jay Pizzle still the way his sensitivity is turned up for his controller. It's him and a couple other people. They turn really fast. And I can't turn that fast with my mouse because of the DPI setting that I have on my mouse. It's really low. So it's like you could.
My son's insane on a controller. He's insane on a controller. He's ridiculously fast. I mean, he can take down people and shooters on a controller when everybody else is on mouse and keyboard. It just depends on your skill, your ability to handle, and having a good controller. That's why for me it was always like, well, I mean, there's certain key bindings and stuff that the PCs have, and loading times are different. But when it comes down to just being good, like they're just good. Like people are better than me, and that's going to exist on an Xbox only server or a mixed server. So I'm staying, but I am curious to see how this all plays out in the long run. So just like I'm curious to see what happens with the whole private server conversations that are happening. So
I'm looking forward to the private server stuff. I think that's a great idea. I don't think it will kill the game at all. I can't remember. I think it was Falcor that was talking about it on Twitter the other day. I was reading about how GTA's had private servers for years, and it's still one of the top selling games available for all the consoles and stuff. And it makes sense. I mean, if you give people the opportunity to play how they want in a setting that's for their own, you can really start getting some really cool stuff out of a community that way.
Well, I think it's great for content creation, and I think that's where GTA has excelled, because people have been using that game as the sandbox for content for years. And being able to go in, on your own or with just a select group of people allows you to take that world and use it the way you want for the content that you're creating. I think, to me, it just depends on how it rolls out. And I think my more concern is just what drama it's going to cause as people deal with it rolling out. I mean, I think it's great for content creation. It's great for things like Race of Legends and all the other big kind of closed events that are happening. It would be, as an educator, it would be fantastic. I think teachers would be much more inclined to use Sea of Thieves if you had the ability to bring your classroom or groups of kids into a closed server. Like that takes a lot of the threat out of the game, as well as it takes a lot of the prep out of the game. So you could use it.
Not to mention the toxicity too.
Oh yeah, I mean it's why you can't you couldn't use it right now. I mean, you could, but you'd have to be really careful. You'd have to turn off like being able to see people's chat or text chat. You have to make sure that everybody's in party chat. Like it's a process to be used now. But
that was one of the things I liked about the Maiden Voyage was a sectioned off sandbox that would be great for tossing your kid in, toss a 5-year-old with a controller into the maiden voyage and just let them have fun. Like they can't do damage to themselves. They can't interact with anyone else. They can go run around and live in this beautiful little island world with no cares. And then when they're ready and they feel comfortable, they can get on the ship and head out into the seas and start dealing with the megalodons on the ships and see all the cool events and kind of have that theme park ride down the channel towards the actual seas.
Yeah.
And, having private servers would be, in my mind, the equivalent to what Assassin's Creed Odyssey did. Or was it Odyssey? Origins?
I think was it Origins that has the education mode?
Yes. Yeah. The Egyptian setting. That needs to be more of a thing in my mind.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that would be amazing to be able to play around with.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see how that unfolds.
It'll be cool. Yeah. It'll be, regardless of how people will push against it, the outcome will be better for the community because you can start building machinima and stories out of it. You can have public and private events. You can do charity events without fear of having to farm up ships in a server beforehand. You can have Discord parties where you can get everyone onto a ship and have a friendly battle and then go drink about it later in the tavern. Like the things that I think the kind of circles that people have created and the communities that they've built up on their own for their own branding or just who they like to play with, having a private server will serve them for doing the things that I think Rare at the start of when they began developing this game wanted to bring to the world. And now that we have everyone, it's no different than when content creators get larger. The larger you get, the broader scope you have, and the more people that you run into that don't like you out of principle, not because of what you do or what you say, but just they don't like you, and they'll hit like the dislike button just for the sake of hitting the dislike button, just to spite you. And that's kind of how, when you get to 10 million players, you start noticing this trend of players on the seas that are out there just to antagonize and troll people.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So having private servers, I think, will help eliminate some of the frustrations that come as a result of dealing with people who aren't living in the spirit of the pirate code.
Right.
And with that, I think that's a good note to end the episode on. ChocMooJoo, thank you so much. This is something I've wanted to bring you onto the show for a while. It was weird that it happened as a result of you having to deal with what actually happened. Did the washing machine?
No, so the water line to my toilet in my hallway broke, and so so it basically was just like in cartoons when the hose like is turned on full blast and it's just waving in the air. That literally was my bathroom. It was great. It was a long night, and every towel is actually still sitting outside drying. I need to actually wash those and put them back. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
It was super.
Yeah. So really, really weird circumstance. I'm sorry that it happened, but I'm glad that it sparked the discussion of actually having you come onto the show, because it's been a pleasure talking with you. And
it's been fun.
Hopefully, I would love to have the opportunity to get you back on the show again at any other time that you want to talk about gaming or talk about kids. And maybe if we could get a time where we can actually sit down and talk about how other teachers who are across the world might want to do something that you're doing and boot up their own little group for kids to start learning about either social media and gaming, or gaming and streaming, or just a critical analysis for games, or even game design, like how you kind of got started with that. I'd love to dive into that and give it some due diligence and some time where we can kind of talk about that kind of thing, and hopefully helping other people do what you've been doing for quite a while.
Yeah, I would love to anytime. You just let me know. I will definitely make time for that.
Very cool. Awesome. Pirates, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you loved it. If you want to get a hold of ChocMooJoo the way that I did, she is over on Twitter at the Choc, CHOC, Moo, MOO, Joo, 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 which is just chocolate chocolate milk, right?
It's just chocolate milk, yes.
Just chocolate. It's my favorite beverage next to eggnog.
It's a good one.
I love it. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. As always, if you guys ever want to send in feedback or anything like this, I am probably going to go back in because I know I got some feedback the last week because I asked you guys for player immortalization or themes, and I want to make sure I dive into that. So I'm going to pause and then I'll be right back. Ahoy there, pirates. If you're listening to this, it is the actual end of the interview that I had with Chocmoojoo, but I wanted to make sure that I was doing my due diligence and listening, or not listening to you, well, listening to you kind of, but hearing your feedback and making sure that I address it in each episode because your feedback matters to me. So you told me what your immortalizations were going to be. I had a few people reach out to me this last week, and I wanted to let you guys know what I thought of them. So X-Ray Lex wrote in and said that Legend of Sea of Thieves immortalizations, I think I would be a rock. Just a random rock for the fact that I like to spread humor and sarcasm to the Sea of Thieves world and get a mention by John on every dev stream. And X-Ray Lex, I agree. I think that would be actually really funny if you were just a random rock and you knew that you were that rock, but you would have to let everyone else know what that rock meant to you. We also got in some other ones. It says, "G'day, CaptainLogun. This is from Zack Attack. I love hearing you talk about the mortalization update coming on Wednesday. The devs have done a fantastic job putting Easter eggs in the game to commemorate players who have given so much to the community in a lot of different ways. If I was ever going to have my own, or one of my own, I wanted my pirate's name, Swashbumbling Bill, etched into the side of a normal rowboat washed up on a beach with a broken cutlass, because I'm notoriously horrible with PvP. If the broken one at Mermaid's Hideaway could be restored, that would be ideal. Mermaids is my favorite island in the game and plays a big part in my pirate's backstory. Take care on the sea, Captain." Zack Attack. I know you said that I didn't necessarily need to read this in the podcast, but I thought it was a great one because Mermaids has actually got quite a few on there. And if you haven't gotten a chance to go over to Mermaid's Hideaway, I would definitely recommend it because there were a few over there that I actually didn't know about and or forgot. I got another one in too. CaptainLogun, in June, my wife joined me at the rank of Pirate Legend. Congratulations. To celebrate the occasion, I posted a nice picture on Reddit of our pirates celebrating in full pirate legend gear. The link is down below. I will actually put that into the show notes if you want to take a look at it. I'm sure we're not the first Pirate Legend couple, but the picture created a solid buzz on the subreddit, with lots of Redditors sharing their stories of how they and their significant others sail together, and how we inspired them to keep going. To mortalize us, I would love to see two poles, side by side, with one a little shorter than the other, at the top of Smuggler's Bay, with the Pirate Legend hats hanging on the poles. Each of our gamer tags could be carved into our respective poles, overlooking the Sea of Thieves from the most romantic point over at Smuggler's Bay. Love the show. Captain Carapace, Gamertag, Sea Key Trips, if you guys want to reach out and congratulate them on their achievement for both hitting Pirate Legends. And I think that was all of them. If I missed one, I'm sorry. Hit me up somewhere on social media, and I will make sure to get it into next week's show. Shout out to Socks with Sandals and Mending Mercy for sailing with me the other night. I had a great time sailing with them and just kind of chatting about Sea of Thieves and immortalizations and their appreciation of what I do. I love them, and I love sailing with them whenever I get a chance, and to anyone else that I get to sail with. I really love sailing with you all. It's a great pleasure. I think that's it for everything else. Pirates, that's going to do it. Thank you again. I know this is kind of like a weird second ending to the show, but I love you all. If you want to get a hold of me, there's plenty of ways to do it. You can always reach me at CAPT_LOGUN on Twitter. You can always email me in a message or a story, First Mates Logs, immortalization things, at CAPTLOGUN@gmail.com. Links are always in the show notes. I still have merchandise advice out there. If you want to go buy Keelhauled Discord or Keelhauled podcast t-shirts, it's got the logo for the podcast on there in white and black variants, as well as mugs, cell phone cases, all that good jazz. And also feel free to join the Discord. People come and go all the time as people find their groups and their niches. There's always a group of people, and I'm working on making the Discord a little easier to look for groups so that people can find people to play with, or at least know who's looking for a crew and can message them without necessarily having to put out like an open call. And if anyone has any experience with that, I would definitely appreciate it, as I am kind of learning how to do this all on my own as I read and reach out to other people who have it in their Discords. Shout out to Crotuck, who I still want to get on the show. And Pirates, thank you so much. We are closing in on the end of this month. Next month is going to be a pretty exciting month for me, because it is going to be the 2-year anniversary for the podcast, I believe, because it's been 1 year. This will be the end of the 2-year, and we'll be starting in on the 3rd year of the podcast at the end of February. I've got some good stuff in store for that. And with that, Pirates, thank you so much. I love you, and I look forward to sailing with you on the Sea of Thieves.